there are 12 different profiles. Those profiles are a combination of 6 different lines. When we look at profiles, you're really looking at a combination of themes based on which lines are in those profiles. I think it's very important to note that a lot of the profiles themselves are already conflicted. There are very few profiles that, I mean, there are some that have sort of core themes. The 1-4, the 4-1, the 2-5, and the 5-2 have certain core themes, and there's resonance and harmony in them. But some of the other profiles have conflicts in them that already set up an aspect of the soul curriculum. And again, when people learn about their profile, oftentimes what comes with it is a deep sense of self-acceptance. So let's look at the 2-4 profile as an example. The 2 in traditional human design called the hermit, the 4 in traditional human design called the opportunist, has this need to be sort of in the world and out of the world. And finding that harmony between when do I go out and be in the world, and when do I go home and be at home alone, and how do I find the balance between those two pieces, can oftentimes be challenging for the 2-4. And they'll oftentimes, if they don't understand this about themselves, they have questions. You know, why is it that when I'm home alone, I'm lonely, and when I go out, I want to go home, right? And they can't figure out what's the deal with that, right? So helping them gain that awareness of how those 2 lines operate, and how when we really optimize both of those lines, the disharmony in the profile settles down and it doesn't become such a conflict and a problem is important. There are 2 parts of, or 2 aspects to the profiles. So if we look at where the profile lines come from, the profile lines come from 6 lines of the Chinese hexagrams, the I Ching, from the 6 lines of the hexagrams from the Chinese I Ching. If we look at those 6 lines, if we break them apart, they're comprised of 2 trigrams, 2 sets of 3 lines. If we take the top trigram down and put it next to the lower trigram, we'd see that there's a relationship between line 1 and line 4. And in fact, those 2 lines are in harmony. We see a relationship between the line 2 and the line 5, because again, they're side by side. So 1 is at the bottom, 4 is at the bottom. In the middle, we have line 2 and line 5. And then at the top, we have line 3 and line 6, which also has harmony in it. The lower trigram lines 1, 2, and 3, have as part of their theme an internal contemplative nature. A lot of the exploration and the learning and the contemplation in lines 1, 2, and 3 happen inside. And in fact, oftentimes those first 3 lines represent a learning style that's very personal and integrative and involves self-reflection. Lines 4, 5, and 6 are what we call transpersonal lines, which means oftentimes the themes of those 3 lines are learned through our relationships. And so those 3 lines are oftentimes themes that get lived out through our relationships with others, and as such have a whole different set of pain sometimes than the lower trigram lines. So the knowing and understanding that the lower lines are interpersonal and the upper lines are transpersonal starts to give you a bigger awareness of where some of the soft spots might be in the experiences of the different lines, either in combination with themselves in the profile or in the way in which they go out and experience the world. When we look at the profiles, I find that our conversations about the profiles in traditional human design, I want to say this really nicely. they really don't often have a lot of positive stuff associated with them. I mean, they're just really kind of, I don't know, when Ross started unpacking the profiles, he must have been having a series of really bad days. That's just all I can think of. So, we don't oftentimes hear about the gifts of the lines of the profiles. And I think we get so lost in the doom and gloom of the lines of the profiles that we neglect to recognize that we are the way that we are for a reason, and that there is an arc of growth available here. And I think it's really good to address that arc, because otherwise we read about our profiles and we feel pretty crappy about ourselves. So of course, my intention here is to give you parts of the profile storyline that raises your hope that you are here for a reason and it's good. And so it'll help you really hopefully get some greater depth around the possibility of the highest potential for each of the lines. Now, I don't go into the 12 profiles, because I really have found over the years that when you understand the lines and how the lines in your profiles sometimes play together, that is all you need to know. That if you start reading in depth some of the narratives around, oh, the 6-2 is this and the 5-1 is this, I might someday rewrite that. That might be something else to put in my list of things to do. But I don't necessarily agree in the way that I've seen these profiles show up through my clients, that the description of a 5-1, that the one in a 5-1 acts differently than the one in a 1-3. I don't find that to be true. I think a 1 is a 1 is a 1. And the interplay between the two lines is important. And I say interplay specifically and very deliberately, because I think sometimes there's, and I've been guilty of teaching it this way too, I think sometimes there's this idea that first you have to accomplish the tasks of this line, and then you can accomplish the tasks of the second line in the profile. I mean, the following line in the profile. And I really find that when you're optimized in how you experience the profile, those two parts play together in an integral way. And one isn't more important than the other, and one isn't more needed than the other, and one doesn't bear heavier weight in terms of purpose than the other. That they're both equally vital, and they both need to be optimized and functioning at the highest level in order for somebody to be really getting their needs met and activating their full purpose in life.